Mr. President.
I recognize the senator from Alaska.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to speak for up to 15 minutes prior to the scheduled roll call votes.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've come to the floor this morning as we begin debate on two identical disapproval resolutions. This is Senate Joint Resolution 91. I filed it with Senator Sullivan, and then House Joint Resolution 131, which is a companion measure filed by our delegation colleague, Representative Begich. These resolutions would nullify the Biden administration's Coastal Plain oil and gas program. This was unilaterally rewritten and finalized over our objections back in November of 2024. We're going to have an opportunity to vote later to proceed, a motion to proceed to my Senate resolution. And then if that succeeds, our final vote tomorrow will be on the House resolution because it can then go directly to the President's desk. Those of us in the Alaska delegation filed these resolutions because we are, again, seeking to overturn the Biden administration's effort to effectively shut down resource production across Alaska. We opposed their Central Yukon Resource Management Plan, their Integrated Activity Plan for our National Petroleum Reserve, and their decision to shut down any potential development on a very small part of the coastal plain. So for those who have not followed this, the coastal plain is a 1.56 million acre tract of land. This is on the eastern slope of Alaska's North Slope. So if you look at the overlay here of Alaska across the lower 48 states, the ANWR region is up here in the upper eastern corner. The refuge itself is about 19 million acres. This is approximately the size of South Carolina. The non-wilderness area, this is the 1002 area, is 1.5 million acres, approximately the size of Delaware. So again, you see this in that section of the map there. But the coastal plain is part of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, but in designating that as a refuge, Congress specifically reserved this area up at the top on the slope there, specifically reserved the area for energy exploration and potential future development. And Congress did this through what was known as Section 1002 of the Alaska National Interest Land Conservation Act. We call it ANILCA. And so when we refer to the 1002 area, it is this coastal plain here within the ANWR region. Section 1002 of ANILCA starts with a purpose that explicitly authorizes, quote, exploratory activity within the coastal plain in a manner that avoids significant adverse effects on the fish and wildlife and other resources. And so I think it's important that people understand this purpose, this distinction. The 1002 area, this area here, the purple area, is not federal wilderness. By law, it is a federal set-aside. This area here is wilderness. This is the refuge area. The 1002 area, again, was specifically set aside to authorize exploratory activity. And then Congress left the decision on development to be determined later. And it was years, it was decades actually, it was in 2017, we in Congress agreed what should be allowed. I was chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee at the time, and we added a Title II to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. It drew bipartisan support, but we effectively put an end to a 40-year battle. We opened up a small fraction of the coastal plain to responsible development. And under the terms of that act, we required at least 2 area-wide lease sales over the course of 7 years, but we provided balance to all that. It wasn't just open the whole thing for exploration. We limited surface development to just 2,000 acres. So keep in mind, this area that's the size of Delaware, we limited surface development to 2,000 acres, which is 1/100th of a 1%. 1/100th of 1%, or 1/10,000th of all of ANWR. That's what we included within that measure in that 2017 Act. We did not shortcut or truncate the environmental review process. The Department of Interior effectively spent 3 years designing a sound, environmentally protective program. And the result then was a record of decision in August 2020 that would have allowed us to safely develop the area's anticipated resources while fully protecting the fish, the wildlife, and the subsistence uses. We've talked a lot on this floor and in other areas about the resources that we project to be in the ANWR area, prolific resources, an estimated 7.7 billion barrels of oil, which would be enough to add 500,000 barrels a day to our Trans-Alaska pipeline system for perhaps the next 40 years, to fill up our pipeline. I am one who has been engaged in this battle for decades, and I absolutely understand the concerns about whether or not limited development makes sense in the area. And like so much of Alaska, the coastal plain, this is a special place. None of us wants to see it harmed, and that's why we went to such extraordinary lengths to ensure that energy development and environmental protection could coexist. We didn't trade one for the other. We didn't put energy above the environment. We had a lot of confidence in the program that was finalized in 2020. But unfortunately, we never got the chance to once again demonstrate how Alaska leads the world when it comes to balanced, environmentally responsible development. We held our first lease sale in early 2021, but after that, everything seems to just kind of have gone in reverse. Because on his first day in office, President Biden suspended the Coastal Plain program. His Department of Interior paused all leasing and development activities before arbitrarily canceling every lease in the area. And the Biden administration didn't stop there either. They next decided to rewrite the Coastal Plain program to make leasing unattractive and development impossible. And they claimed deficiencies in the original process between 2017 and 2020 that they had to somehow go back and remedy, but they never really cited anything specific. Now keep in mind, the Biden administration, their political agenda did not include energy from Alaska. So they're trying to move forward and address what they said were flaws, but their process was also fatally flawed. For starters, the Biden administration failed to meaningfully consult with the people who actually live on the North Slope, including those who live in Kaktovik, which is the only community within ANWR's boundaries. And when I say failed, I mean they refused. They flat out refused. I added report language to my Interior Appropriations bill, directing them to do the consultation, and still they refused. The Biden administration issued a record of decision for a new Coastal Plain program in November of 2024. And if you spend time looking at it, you'll understand why we're here, because it clearly and repeatedly contradicts federal law. Because the Tax Cut and Jobs Act opened the 1.56 million acre coastal plain to potential development subject to the 2,000 acre surface limit. We were very clear in what that law was. And the Biden administration took that, flipped it on its head, and finalized a program that allowed leasing on just 400,000 acres. So gone immediately. Gone was potential leasing on 74% of the 1002 area. And the 400,000 acres that was left available, which is, I questioned the availability there, but it amounted to less than was bid on at the 2021 lease sale. And even there, 231,700 acres were subject to no surface occupancy. Another 84,300 were subject to controlled surface use, and 3,100 acres were subject to timing limitations. So only about 5% of the overall coastal plain was subject to standard lease terms and conditions under the Biden plan. So think about that, just 5% now. Biden administration also restricted seismic surveying, the best way to understand the coastal plain's resources. They restricted the surveying to the lands that were now theoretically available for leasing. They even reinterpreted the 2,000-acre limit to not be a saleable feature of leases. We had discussed this with the parliamentarians during the budget reconciliation back in 2017, but a matter of secretarial discretion to allow development of anywhere between 0 and 2,000 acres. So again, they flipped that on their head. So it wouldn't surprise you to learn that the 2024 program contemplates development on a maximum of 995 surface acres. And again, what we had statutorily prescribed, what the law says, was 2,000 acres. And then finally, the Biden administration expanded and created new lease stipulations and required operating procedures to further dissuade leasing interest and clamp down on any potential for development. And the goal wasn't hard to understand. It's evident in the 2024 record of decision. Interior acknowledged that under their preferred alternative, future oil production from the coastal plain would decline nearly 80%. They knew it, that was the plan. I think they were probably trying to shoot for closer to 100%. Under the 2024 plan, there would be no leasing, as we clearly saw in a lease sale that was designed to fail and then did fail late last year. There would be no development on the coastal plain regardless of congressional action, support from Alaskans who live on the North Slope and within the coastal plain, or our national need for responsibly produced energy. And bear in mind, this is all taking place right as the Biden administration was relaxing sanctions on countries like Iran, like Venezuela, allowing them to produce more and financially benefit from the development. And it also happened right as California, which is a traditional market for Alaska's oil, was importing more oil from the Middle East, which is a long way from California, but also from other countries in South America, actively deforesting the Amazon rainforest. So you want to talk about a massive geopolitical and environmental failure. That was it. That was it happening under that administration. Less oil from Alaska means a Trans-Alaska pipeline system that is running mostly empty. It means a West Coast that increasingly turns to imports instead of domestic energy, regardless of the terror that breeds or the devastation that it causes. It also means fewer jobs for hardworking Alaskans, less opportunity in our communities for the folks who support and benefit from energy development, less revenue for the state of Alaska, and in turn, less infrastructure and services. And to me, that just makes no sense. The people of the North Slope, the Alaska delegation, and the state of Alaska were ignored as the Biden administration put its 2024 program into place. From the start, this was a fait accompli. There was no question in my mind what they planned to do, and there was nothing, unfortunately, that we were able to do to change their minds. And it really didn't matter what Alaskans wanted. It didn't matter what the law required. It didn't matter that they wound up in court and lost badly, as they did when a federal judge ruled that their cancellation of the coastal plain leases was blatantly illegal. But all of that was their choice, and this is ours. This is our choice to disapprove and permanently nullify their actions so that they never come back in substantially similar form. So if you care about the rule of law, if you care about our domestic energy security or the consequences of sending our dollars abroad for energy that we have here at home, then I would ask you to join us in supporting this resolution. I think if you If you acknowledge that no one cares more about Alaska than Alaskans, you should be with the full Alaska delegation on this. We can restore the rule of law. We can require federal agencies to follow congressional direction. We can return to balanced management on the coastal plain while still protecting 99.99% of ANWR's surface acreage. I think the choice is pretty clear. I would urge colleagues to support the motion to proceed later and the underlying resolution when we vote on it tomorrow. And Mr. President, I would ask as I wrap here that unanimous consent be provided for letters of support from those who live on the North Slope, as well as letters from the Resource Development Council and the NFIB. Would ask that these be included in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.